Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Today we are going to be doing my November wrap-up. I have not done a wrap-up in a while. Last few months have been just absolutely crazy. Let's get right into it. So I'm not gonna have any of these books with me physically, unfortunately, because all my books were already packed away at this point. But I still wanted to get a chance to talk about all of them. I have my reading journal here. Oh yeah, let's start with stats. I always forget to start with the stats. So in the month of November, I read 8 books. My average rating was 4.4. I read around 3,700 pages. 6 of the books that I read were physical and 2 were on my Kindle. For the genre breakdown, I read 4 fantasies, 3 romances, and 1 sci-fi book, which puts me at 115 out of 80, which my original goal was 80. I did increase my goal to 120 on Fable, but as far as the Goodreads reading challenge, I just kept it 80. So yeah, that is the breakdown of all of my stats for the month. The first book that I started November off with was The Second Death of Locke by V.L. Bovalino. I will be popping up pictures here of the books that I'm talking about. This was a fantasy romance. I don't know if it'd be considered fantasy romance or romantasy. I know those are 2 different things. I wrote in here romantasy, but looking back now, I'm maybe it was more fantasy romance. This book I gave 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, but something did hold me back from rating it any higher, but I can't really pinpoint exactly what it was. I felt that this book was really unique in the fact that, let me back up. So this book follows Gray and Kier, and they have always been best friends. They have grown up together, they're very close. And Gray is Kier's well. So the magic system in this world, you have to have 2 people to perform magic. You have a well, who is the one who holds the magic, and then you have a mage who can draw on that power and kind of like the wizard, the magician. They can take that well of power and then use it and make it into something. So I thought that was really, really unique. I've never read a book before where the magic system relied on the bond of 2 people to perform magic, so that was really, really fun. And I do think that that bond between Gray and Kier really helped make the romance even better and create even more tension, because they were friends first, because this is more of a friends to lovers rather than enemies to lovers like you get in most fantasy books. I just felt like that was also really refreshing, because as we all know, if you read a lot of romantasy, you get a lot of enemies to lovers, and I love enemies to lovers like anybody else, but like I said, having friends to lovers in a fantasy book was pretty refreshing. So loved that aspect as well. This felt very much like a unique take on a classic fantasy. There was, horseback journeying, all sorts of fun, typical fantasy tropes happening, and yet you had these other unique elements. This felt very medieval to me, time period wise. This is considered a knight fantasy because Gray is the knight, which that's also unique. Having the female main character be the knight, I thought was really fun. So her job is to protect Kier. I really enjoyed this. I did feel the end slowed down or was a little bit drug out to me. And I don't know if it was just that I had a lot going on or what, because it kind of felt a little bit slow at times, especially towards the end. I think that's kind of what prevented it from being a little bit higher rating, but 4 stars is still obviously a great rating and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, 4 stars, really enjoyed this one. The book that I picked up right after that is Mate by Ali Hazelwood, and this is paranormal romance, and it's in the world of Bride. So you have werewolves and vampires and stuff like that, and the 2 factions do not get along. So you have those kind of politics of these 2 different species trying to, they keep themselves very separate, and they have all of these animosities towards each other. But in the first one, you have the 2 trying to come together with this marriage of convenience situation, which was really, really fun. But I think I liked Mate even better than Bride. Mate follows 2 other characters, follows the best friend of the female main character from book 1, and then a new character. I don't know, he might have been mentioned in book 1, I really can't remember. Either way, I loved this one. I felt with the MMC of this one being the alpha of a pack, and then having the female main character be kind of this different hybrid situation, I felt like that dynamic was really compelling. He has very much like alpha werewolf vibes. This is very Omegaversy. If you don't know what that is, look it up, because I feel like that's important to know going in. You're gonna get some Omegaversy things in here, and it's spicy, so just know that going in. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. It had like the typical Ali Hazelwood wit and humor that I love, which is why she's one of my auto-buy authors. I've loved everything I've read by her, even the ones that like aren't my favorite on the hierarchy of favorite Ali Hazelwood books. This was really, really fun. I love her wit and her humor. Like I said, like it's unmatched. She's a brilliant author. I ended up rating this one 4.75. Is that what that says? I don't know. I like fill in the stars here. Okay, so I rated Mate a 4.5 stars. I didn't quite get like the 5-star feeling, but it was really bingeable. I almost read this in like one day. I think I read it in like 2 days. But it's just so easy to read and fun. So yeah, highly recommend anything by Ali Hazelwood if you've never read her before. Mate was another good one by her. Directly after that, so the next book that I read was actually in my only reading vlog that I posted in November. So if you want my in the moment thoughts on this one and the next book we're gonna talk about, make sure to go watch that. So the next book I read was The Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab. And this is set in the Darker Shades world. So the Darker Shades trilogy by V.E. Schwab, you have to read that first before going into this one, because this is kind of just an extension of that world. And in that world, you have all of these different Londons that are kind of one on top of the other. And you have magicians that can, well, some of them, the Antari, can travel between these worlds, but the Antari are kind of dying out. And so one of them, Kel, is one of the main characters in this series who just gets thrust into this crazy world of adventure, and there's this dark mysterious power that they're battling, and it just felt like really, really classic adventure fantasy. It even reminded me a little bit like the enemy in these books, in this series, reminds me a little bit of like Throne of Glass. If you know, you know. I know that that's like a bold statement because they are very, very different, but something about the dark forces that they're fighting in this one reminded me a lot of Throne of Glass. So I just loved this. It like Darker Shades in general took me by surprise. I was just so happy to be back in this world with the Fragile Threads of Power, back with these characters. And these books are multiple point of views, like many, many point of views, especially this one. We're following Lila and Kel and Rye from the first books, but then you have the addition of a few more character point of views as well. And it's just such like a rich world that V.E. Schwab weaves. Even with the multiple POVs, I'm never confused or lost. Like I said, she just interweaves everything so perfectly, so magically. I just love these characters so much. Her writing and storytelling, like I said, is just magical. It's magical, it's great, you have to read it for yourself. I just really want more Lila, more Kel, more everyone from this series. Like I genuinely love them. So I'm excited that there's going to be, I don't know how many more books in this series, but I've heard that there's gonna be at least like a couple more books, I think, in this world. So very happy. I rated this one 5 stars because how could I not? It was a beautiful journey. It was a really thick book too, but again, I feel like I read it pretty quickly because every time I picked it up, I was just like so in it. Drink break. But yeah, so Fragile Threads of Power, 5 stars, amazing. Talked about it in my reading vlog in November. And then in that same reading vlog, the next book that I picked up was Unnatural by Mia Sheridan. It's an interconnected standalone with Unwanted. And I really, really loved that one. It took me by surprise because it was very much, it's a romance, but it was also very much like psychological thriller vibes. You have this mystery and then you have this mysterious man in the woods. And it went to a place that I wasn't really expecting in a romance. And I just found that so fun, so refreshing. And when I say fun, I mean like, the topics are pretty heavy, so not fun in that regard, but just like bingeable. Easy to read, bingeable, flew through it, loved it. This one I rated 4 stars. It was still shocking and thrilling and somehow also tender, like the romance, just like the first one, Unwanted. I don't know how she does it. There's so much trauma in these books, and yet the romance, the connection that's built between the two main characters, I haven't even mentioned their names yet, Autumn and Sam, that connection is just like so beautiful because of the shared traumas. Like these two go through so much. I found myself like horrified at different times reading this book. I don't ever like to give away too much because I like going into things blind, but if you are I'll just say that if you don't like hospital settings or like children being sick, if that's like a trigger for you, maybe avoid this one. I gave it 4 stars. Really glued to the page, just like I was with the first one. Once you get into these, it's like hard to look away because crazy things are happening and you wanna see it through. So would I recommend this one? Maybe, but yeah, look up the trigger warnings. I mentioned one of them, but this one is definitely like hard. Like I don't know, this series is like kind of harder topic. So those were the only 2 books that I read in that vlog in November. And then I picked up Quicksilver to do a reread before Brimstone came out. And my reread, I'm not gonna go over too much with it. I'm just gonna say that it was still a 5 stars. Like that 5-star rating from when I first read it like a year ago held up. I think I liked it even better the second time around. Kingfisher, oh, he is just chef's kiss. He is perfect. I loved that he's like so mysterious and like brooding and almost kind of, he almost a little bit borders on mean at first, but he's also just like so confident and I love him. And he's tortured. He's one of those dark MMCs who is just tortured. And we love a man with trauma. So yeah, Quicksilver was a great time. Once again, I'm really glad that I did decide to reread it because it made the experience going into Brimstone that much better because everything was still fresh in my mind. Moving on to Brimstone, I rated Brimstone 5 stars as well. I think I somehow loved Brimstone even more than Quicksilver. And obviously being that this is the second book in the series, I'm not going to spoil anything, so never fear. If you haven't read it yet, I am not going to spoil anything. But it was fast-paced, it was spicy, there was really fun plot going on, lovable side characters, and just really funny, humorous moments like that took me by surprise. Like I was laughing out loud. Carrion, if you know, you know. Oh my God, he was hilarious. I was dying at him. I love him so much. But anyway, and then like another little side thing that I want to mention is the bond built between Fisher and Onyx was freaking precious. So those 2 little specific aspects were like 2 of my favorite things of that book, but I flew through this. This was a chunky book. I can't remember how many pages. It was long, maybe like 700. I don't know. Even with that being said, like I flew through it within 2 days. Like I was sat for it. I enjoyed every moment. The ending was crazy as usual at the end of like a fantasy book that's not the last book in the series. Even if it's the last book in the series, sometimes the ending is crazy. But anyway, ending was crazy and I'm very excited to read the next book in the series. 5-star series. Absolutely recommend it. And after Brimstone, I picked up Overruled by Lana Ferguson, which is a book that has been on my TBR for a long time. Lana Ferguson is one of my auto-buy authors. My favorite book by her is The Fake Mate. So obviously when I saw that she had this book coming out, I had to get it. This one is like a rival workplace romance, like friends with benefits situation, hate to love, but like kind of one-sided. And I will admit those tropes aren't usually my favorite. So going into this, I kind of already knew that this one might not be one of my favorites of Lana's, and I did end up rating this one 3 stars, so still good, still enjoyable. But again, these just like aren't my favorite tropes to read about. But even setting that aside, her writing was still really good. It was classic Lana, great writing, very easy to read, very bingeable. As with all of her other books, it was also very spicy like all of her books tend to be. I just had a few qualms. So the tropes, as I mentioned, but that's my bad. Like going into a book, I need to know that if it's not my favorite trope, that, maybe it won't be my favorite read, and that's okay. Also, the female main character, Danny, was bothering me so much. Like, this poor man, Ezra, I felt so bad for him. I just felt like she was really stringing him along this whole time, and he just was like fighting. He was fighting for his life to get her to like notice him and think of him as more than just like a piece of meat. I get it. Like, I get why we're doing this trope, I get it, but at the same time, it was very frustrating to read about. I think the main thing that annoyed me was she would be like, no, we can't be together, but then she would immediately give in to like their chemistry and the physical side of things. And so there was never much integrity like behind what she was saying, right? Like she would say one thing and then do another. And I get it, it's for the trope, it's for this, making this book, spicy and whatever. I don't know, she was just really bothering me, and it just felt like she was stringing him along and being like mean and emotionally unavailable, and just went on for too long. It was too much back and forth for me. And so yeah, that was that one. I rated it 3 stars. It's just not my favorite one of hers. And like I said, that's okay. After that, the last book that I finished, I had to check. The last book I finished in the month of November was Caliban's War by James S.A. Corey. And this is book 2 in the Expanse series, which is like sci-fi. I would even say it's a little bit of like horror, like mostly sci-fi, but a little bit of horror. And there's a lot of like intergalactic war and politics. You get multiple point of views. This series follows Jim Holden. You see him first in book 1, Leviathan Wakes. And how do I describe him? He was the XO of like a space mining ship, I guess you could say. So he had that in his past. And then in book 1, he hooks up with the detective Miller, and they go through this whole intergalactic journey to find this girl, and they discover this crazy proto-molecule that's like defying all laws of nature, and that's like the horror portion of it. And it was just such a fun journey. I'm not usually the biggest fan of sci-fi because usually for me it goes kind of like over my head with the technological and scientific jargon used. But this one I feel like is much more accessible. So like if you're new to sci-fi, I would recommend it. This one specifically was so good. It was very, very fast paced, and I feel like the backdrop of space just sets the stage perfectly to showcase all these different sides of humanity, and it was just so much fun. I talked about this book in my last vlog, my Michigan vlog that I just posted. So I've probably already said some of this stuff, but really enjoy this series, and I think that it really takes me by surprise every time I read one of them, because for some reason in my mind I'm like, oh, you know, I'm not really a sci-fi girl. I genuinely thoroughly enjoyed both of these. Caliban's War I ended up giving 4.75, so very close to 5 stars. I just didn't get like the 5-star feeling, I guess you could say. It was just so good. I think that these authors are really good at writing severely flawed characters who you also seem to just like fall in love with. Like their flaws are very obvious on the page, and yet you can't help but feel for them and just really understand where they're coming from and how they got to where they are. I loved the new characters that we got in this book, specifically this one older woman. If you know, you know. She's just like so foul-mouthed and hard-edged, but then she has this softer side to her that I loved seeing. She kind of took on this like grandmotherly persona almost, but like very much in private, like the face that she shows to the world, because she's so deep into the political side of things. Like she's a higher up power in this world. That was like a really long run-on sentence where I wasn't even saying anything. Anyway, loved her. These books are just really fun. I love the plot. I love the world. They're so fast paced, and it's so different because I feel like almost everything else I read has romance in it, and this one does just like the bare minimalist amount. It has the very littlest amount of romance in it, which is surprising that because I read so much romance, when I read something that's not really romance, and then I really enjoy it, for some reason that takes me by surprise. So this is like a reminder that I need to get outside of my comfort zone more often and read like other genres and stop putting myself in this little box of only reading romance and fantasy romance. But highly recommend the Expanse series. Once I've finished all 3 books, I think I am going to finally start the show. I've heard great things about the show as well, but I wanted to read like the first few books in the series first. It's a very long series. Yeah, that is every book that I read in November. I would love to know what you read in November. Have you read any of these that I've talked about? How did you feel about them, if so? And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one, and have a great day. Bye.